Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Last Senyera podcast. My name is Bryan, and with me today I have Matthew. How are you, Matthew?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me. How are you?
Thanks for joining me, man. I'm also good. With us today as well is Adivo. How are you, Adivo?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. How are you?
That's great to hear, man. Well, let's jump straight into it. One of the topics that I want to discuss today is the nil-nil draw in the UEFA Champions League against Slavia Prague in the Camp Nou. Uh, what do you thought about that game, Matthew? What do you think? Can you
Well, as it was the case in most Champions League games or most leagues, most games in general under Ernesto Valverde, it was a really disappointing game. But anyway, even if we take a close look at it and exclude the masterclass from the Slavia Prague's goalkeeper, we could have won like 2 goals, 3 goals. But in the contents, it was really dreadful. We couldn't create enough chances. There was no pattern in what we were trying to do. The position was atrocious. I think there was even a picture of us having only 3 players at the back, no midfield at all, and a line of 7 players standing alongside the opposition's high line. We couldn't even exploit inches and inches of space behind the opposition's back line. We couldn't lob, we couldn't spot runs. You know, even if PK or other players managed to find some of those runs, who was really excellent on the day. Um, our pressing was bad. It looked really random. There was no coordination, no synergy between the players. It was bad. I was actually forcing myself to watch only because I liked the team. But in terms of pleasure, there is nothing to get from this team. Uh, it's getting really bad at this point.
Now, usually we don't play very well on the road. We were playing at our home stadium, Camp Nou, and still we played badly. Um, Adiba, what are your thoughts on this game? I want to see your take. I want to hear your take on this.
I mean, if we look at the last 2, 3 years under Valverde, it shouldn't come as much of a surprise. You don't have to go too far back. We recently played Slavia away, and that game was far from convincing either. Before this game even started, there were mistakes in the lineup. You know, with Suarez being out injured, um, most of us expected Griezmann to play as the striker up top, or at least a center forward, but that wasn't in Valverde's plans either. If it got worse with Alba coming off injured, and you would think that Firpo would get a chance, but again, Semedo played at left back and Roberto went at right back. There's so many mistakes Valverde keeps repeating, and you'd think he would learn game after game, season after season, but there's not much else we could say about Valverde which we haven't said. It was disappointing, and expect more or less the same tomorrow against Celta de Vigo.
Also, as you finished saying back there, we have tomorrow's game against Celta de Vigo in the Liga. What do you expect of that game? Just a quick commentary. Alba is unavailable through injury. Todibo and Alenya, they weren't called up. And there's a possibility that Sergio Roberto might be dropped due to him becoming a father. Congratulations to Sergio Roberto on becoming a father. What do you expect from tomorrow's match? What do you think of it? What do you think of it, Adibo?
So essentially, I mean, you would think based off the circumstances you mentioned, that Firpo could get a chance at left back tomorrow. But with Valverde, he never ceases to surprise us. I think he could. It wouldn't be a
Yeah, in the
surprise
bad
if
way.
Firpo, yeah, if Firpo doesn't get the start tomorrow. I think he should. I think he deserves it, to say the least. There's a reason we signed him. Also, with that being said, Suarez looks to be back in the squad. So I guess we won't see Griezmann as a striker just yet under Valverde's plans, but I expect a better result than the Slavia game. Although I don't think it will cover up the mistakes we have in the team. Celta aren't doing that great this season, so a convincing win tomorrow doesn't change the fact that we are in a crisis, if that's what you want to call it. So I think we'll win because we've done well at home this season in the league, more so than anything. But it won't change the fact that there's a lot that needs to change. So I think that's all I have to say for the Celta de Vigo game tomorrow.
I understand your point of view. Now, so far, 19 players have been called up. Uh, in them, we see the return of Suarez and Arthur. Now, Arthur was dropped, uh, in the words of Ernesto Valverde, due to technical reasons for the game against Slavia Prague. There are currently 19 players called up. I'm sorry. One has to be dropped. Now, it could be a possibility of Firpo, Sergio Roberto, or would you expect someone else to be dropped by Ernesto Valverde? What do you think, Matthew?
Well, actually, it depends. Seeing Sergio Roberto is a father now, congratulations to him. He might be dropped just so he can be with his partner and his newborn child. Or maybe we will see Wage dropped, or Firpo for that matter. We will never know with this guy. We can't predict what he does.
But what would you prefer? Who would you have as your 18 man for the game tomorrow? The 11 starters and the 7 substitutions.
Uh, I'd have Sergio Roberto omitted from the list. Leave it the way it is. Like I think Ter Stegen and Neto as goalkeepers. There's Semedo, Piqué, Longley, Umtiti, Firpo. Who else?
Waguez.
Busquets, Frankie, Arthur, Vidal, and the rest.
Now, also we see the return of Suarez to the lineup. He didn't play against Slavia Prague due to an injury. He's already in the squad. He was already called up for the squad, which is very surprising. And I also want to talk into the fact that for Slavia Prague, we started with a front lineup from left to right with Dembele at the left wing, Griezmann in the center, and Messi to the right. However, during the game, that wasn't the case. Griezmann was playing towards the left wing, Messi was playing center, and Dembele went all the way to the right. What's your thoughts on that? Don't you think that's a little bit weird? Not having Suarez in the lineup and still not playing Griezmann at center?
Actually, I don't think so because, as we've all known before signing Griezmann, he's a really versatile player. He can play on either flank. But the thing is, once you put him on the flanks, you diminish how much impact he will have on the game. So yes, he will be defensively more active because flank players should be more active. That's by nature. But with the absence of a proper offensive animation, there is no coordination between the players. There are no rehearsed moves. So yeah, obviously, Griezmann will walk on Suarez's toes, on Messi's as well, because they will all position themselves centrally. So how do you expect him to play at his best when there is no offensive animation and he's being played as a sort of wing back? His most notable contributions to the game are mostly defensive clearances. This is pathetic. You're using a 120 million euro marquee signing, a world champion, as a defensive player. That's disgusting to me. Otherwise, a front line of Dembele on the right, Griezmann on the left, and Messi centrally, it's not that outrageous. If we had a proper coach who drilled the team well, I think it will work like magic.
I understand what you're saying. Now, Adibo, as we've seen in the past few years, we've noticed a decline on Suarez's ability, uh, the difficulty, you could say, of him maintaining a proper weight. Uh, to compete at a professional level in the sport. With the sign of a Griezmann, we thought that he would take a more, how could you say this, impact on the starting lineup and maybe even play some minutes at the center. But so far, we've only seen him uh, as as a left winger, you could say, or positioned on the left. What are your thoughts for tomorrow? Do you think if Suarez is healed somewhat, will Ernesto Valverde risk the chance of him re-injuring himself, or would you start Griezmann at the center? What do you think is going to happen tomorrow?
So based off what I think is gonna happen tomorrow is different to what I want to happen. So I think Valverde will go with Messi on in the center. No, I think he'll go with Messi on the wing and then Suarez up top and Griezmann on the left. Um, Although I think Suarez would be better coming off the bench. As if Valverde, because I think Suarez is really important to Valverde. So if he's really that important, I think he'll get him off the bench just so he doesn't, further ruin the injury per se. Ideally, it would be nice to see Griezmann as the center forward tomorrow, and Messi on the wing and Dembele on the left. I think Suarez off the bench should be the ideal approach for the rest of the season. And a good example of what he could do off the bench was earlier this season against Valencia. There's no denying that there's still a lot of quality left in Suarez, but he's definitely not the same lethal striker who could score 40, 50 goals a season. Him definitely coming off the bench is would be one of the better ideas for me this season. But I think Valverde will still stick to Griezmann, Suarez, and Messi on the wing.
I see. Now, Barcelona come from a three-win, one loss, and one draw form. Celta, on the other hand, they are on a four-lose streak. They recently parted ways with their previous manager, Fran Escriba, and recently appointed to that position Oscar Garcia. Uh, what do you think of his ability to change this team, Celta de Vigo, around, who are currently 18th in La Liga? Adibo?
So I guess as much as we're in a tough situation, you could say the same about Celta. Getting a new manager just recently this week, and then his first game is against Barcelona. I think this is his first game. So it's definitely not an easy situation for Celta or him to be in right now. I still think it won't be an easy game per se. I'm sure Celta know that we aren't in the best form right now, so they will look to exploit that. Get some nerves going on. Celta has been a tough opponent in recent years for us. So as much as they have a new manager, I think they also have the mindset in a way that it can't get much worse for them. Everyone expects Celta to lose tomorrow, while everyone expects Barcelona to win. That's what you would think. So um, I guess with that being said, there is no pressure on Celta, and I think that plays more into their hands than it does into ours for tomorrow's game.
Okay, I understand. And what do you think, Matthew, the changing managerial aspect for Celta de Vigo? Do you think they can change things around and avoid relegation at the end of the season? What do you think of his first game as Celta de Vigo's manager against Barcelona tomorrow?
Well, actually, I think it will take time before Oscar Garcia can implement any ideas to this team. Of course, he can't just come in like 3 4 days and teach a team how to play. It needs to be drilled. It needs to be taught in a sustainable period of time. I think it will Oscar Garcia's job now right now before facing Barcelona will mainly be mentally prepare the team, motivate them, enhance them on that mental level to just go to the Camp Nou, be solid, play under counter attacks and hurt us because with our faulty pressing system. We leave a lot of spaces. We leave a huge gap between the midfield and the defense that any player with a minimum of positional awareness can locate that gap, and any midfielder of a minimum technical quality or verticality can spot any player there. So they will generate a lot of 3 versus 3, 4 versus 4 situations. They have the ability to do that. I think on the long run that Oscar Garcia's appointment can be good to them. I have the last time I have watched him, actually, he was coaching Saint Etienne, and it ended up in a really bad, in a really weird way because he quit, if I remember correctly. At the start of the season, I think Saint Etienne were unbeaten until they suffered a loss against Paris Saint-Germain. Uh, I think he quit after a few weeks after that loss. I don't know why. So as it comes to facing Barcelona, I don't expect a win. I don't expect a loss either. I think it will be a draw, which will be more than enough to put pressure on Valverde before we face either Inter Milan or Dortmund in the Champions League.
I understand. Well, talking about managerial change now, there's a speculation, right? Don't take this very seriously. As I say, these are rumors that the head coach, the current head coach of River Plate, Marcelo Gallardo, there have been some claims that he could replace Valverde by or in December. Uh, Now, these claims, right, these rumors come from Claudio Borghi, and he said that, quote, Marcelo Gallardo will become Barcelona's coach in December. Quote. Now the quote continues, but uh, it's until that I have. What do you think, Matthew? You think that before the year ends, we could see a change in uh, managing for the club, or is Barto and Valverde gonna agree until the end of the season and then evaluate the situation of whether Valverde should continue or not? What do you think, Matthew?
Well, I actually don't know. If we are eliminated from the groups, I think Valverde will be sacked. So, do I wish for Barcelona to be eliminated in the group stage? Yes, I do. If it means
Do you
Valverde is
think he'll be
sacked,
sacked during the season or once the season
if
ends?
we, if we are eliminated from the group stage, I think measures had to be taken from on the behalf of Bartomeu. He will have to sack Valverde. Otherwise, everyone will riot. I mean, we suffered Roma, we suffered Anfield, and it was followed by a loss in the final of Copa del Rey, Barcelona and Bartomeu's most treasured title. So, a company that with a lot of bad to really shitty performances, what do we have? Of course, Bartomeu will have to sack Valverde. So, if we are eliminated from the group stage, I think Gallardo will be an excellent replacement, not only for the short term but also the long one, because he is a really tactically sound coach. I've watched around, I guess, 10 games. Most of them are Copa Libertadores. And in terms of idea, it's really good. It's really intriguing what he proposes in his team. Aside a few technical atrocities on the behalf of the players, some just can't be on the technical level required to play that style of football. But it's really good. It's really intriguing, and I think he will be a good fit at Barcelona.
I understand. Now, Adibo, I also want to ask you, what do you think of these rumors? You think it's a possibility that Barcelona and Ernesto Valverde will part ways in December or before the year ends, or will Bartomeu evaluate Ernesto Valverde's achievement and performances until the end of the season? What do you think?
I mean, something really drastic has to happen for Valverde to leave by December. I think that being said, the most drastic thing that could happen is if Barcelona are eliminated from the group stages. If that's the case, then I think he will get the sack. But then again, with that being said, he's been in charge when we lost to Roma. He's been in charge when we lost to Liverpool at Anfield. So if those two aren't enough to get him the sack, then maybe even getting knocked out of the group stage we may not be enough to get him the sack if the board has been letting him off the hook for the last 2 3 years. So I'm not gonna get my hopes up just yet. I don't think he will be manager next season, though. However, but with that being said, with regards to Marcelo Gallardo, if that's how you say his name. Um, I'm not sure if he's the main candidate. It's just rumors. I don't know, but there are other options on the market who could potentially, I guess, replace Valverde.
I understand. Well, I also want to talk quickly about this that the Clasico, due to some protests and security reasons, a few weeks ago, it wasn't played when it was originally scheduled. It's been changed to December 18th. Uh, there's some speculation, some talk that it could be played between 1 p.m. and 1 and 5 p.m. on a Wednesday. Uh, what do you think about that? Ernesto Valverde has talked about this. Clasico at noon, he said, and I quote, I wouldn't understand that. It would not be right for the fans, unquote. Clasico at noon. What do you think of that, Matthew?
Actually, I have no problem when it comes to the timing, but people who will face a problem will be the local fans. I think also on a marketing level, a Clasico at noon and a half full stadium, I don't think that's a really good move to promote your league.
What about you, Adibo? What do you think of the possibility of playing a Clasico, a big game for the league and for the sports in general, to be played at noon?
I mean, I guess playing it at noon isn't the worst idea if it's on the weekend, but then you look at the fact that it's gonna be on a Wednesday, so
It's on a weekday. A lot of
it's not.
people,
Yeah, a lot of people could be busy and
yeah,
stuff.
work in school.
So yeah, there are reasons why they're taking those measures. I guess to have the classical played at that time, but at the same time, you have to look at the fact that this is by far the biggest game in the league season in La Liga, if not the biggest league matchup in all of Europe, if not the world. So you have to look at it from a marketing point of view. They're going to be missing out on a lot. But with that being said, it's the it's the Clasico, I guess. A lot of people could take the day off just for the Clasico, so we'll see. I don't think it's the best idea if you're looking at it from a marketing point of view. So yeah.
Now, another topic that I wanted to discuss is the talk or the rumors that have been going around of the club of this potential Club de Amigos, right? This friendship or alliance between the players and their preference between one another's and a possible power they have over the club decision, such as which signings they want or who gets to play a certain amount of minutes. What do you think of this? You think this is a real issue, something that's going on in the club, or is it just fake news? What do you think, Adibo?
Um, I guess you could say it could be a bit of both. I'm not gonna deny that senior players in the club get some say regarding the decisions that go around, but I wouldn't say it's as much as the media portrays it to be. I think it's just a bit far fetched, and that's all I guess I have to say with regards to that situation. So yeah.
What about you, Matthew? What do you think of this alleged Club de Amigos within the club and their allegiance and their power to make decisions? Do you think it's something true that's going on, or it's just the media that doesn't know what to talk about?
Actually, there is a clan at Barcelona, just like at Madrid. There are a bunch of friends who are like closer to each other than they are to the other teammates. But in terms of having power, I mean, come on, that's just not realistic. They're just employees. The president is the one who employs them, and that's Bartomeu. The players don't have any power, don't have anything to say on the matter. Of course, they're allowed to have opinions when it comes to certain things, like Valverde. Valverde is a coach that doesn't complicate life for the senior players. He guarantees they'll start, and he gives them like free time from time to time, like 1 day off, 2 days off. You can do whatever you want. So yes, obviously they will like him, not because he's a tactical genius or because he's a world-class manager or anything, just because he's not making their lives a living hell. They're allowed to. We all make mistakes. They're allowed to have bad opinions and bad perceptions of things, but it should not affect how the club operates. No, Bartomeu is actually using this, I don't know how to call it, the fact that the players are fond of the coach and his laziness to defend himself. He's using it as if it was an extra shield, another layer of shield to protect himself. So if Bartomeu doesn't fire Valverde after Roma, okay, they first said it was just an accident, and they used the game against Sevilla as proof. Like, watch, this is Barcelona. Look how they play, and then this and that and that. Against Anfield, they were like, okay, Valverde is under scrutiny. And then the players came, and like any good captain, they didn't blame the coach. They just accepted the fact that they failed. Just like Puyol, Xavi, or Iniesta when they were with Gerardo Martino. They didn't say, okay, that was his fault that we ended up the season trophyless. No, they defended him. They said, we must stuck as a unit. That's what captains do. And Messi and Piqué weren't going to be any different. Of course, they will go into defend Valverde. It's not their job to fire him. Around 5 years ago or 4 years ago, Real Madrid suffered from the same thing. There was the club of Amigos in Madrid who wanted Carlo Ancelotti to stay. And everyone knows that Carlo Ancelotti is not someone who puts emphasis a lot on physical preparation and training. And so he was basically their Valverde, only with a Champions League in his back. They didn't want him to go. Perez still fired him. So what does Bartomeu wait for to fire Valverde? The players' blessing? His employees? I don't think so. It's just smoke and mirrors.
It also could be related to the upcoming elections in 2020 21. Uh, well,
Yeah, imagine how much of a blow it will be, like to fire your coach, the one you stuck by his side and you've been so stubborn to hire him and whatnot, just to fire him after two humiliations and before the elections. But if I can recall correctly, I don't think either Bartomeu or Cardoner will be in the presidential race. I think it will be Laporta, Font, and a certain lady. I don't know. I don't remember her name. Is this sexism?
I
Uh,
don't know. I don't know.
anyway, I
Well,
don't think either Bartomeu or Cardoner will be running for the next election. So either ways, we're safe in a year or so.
that's all it for today. Before we end it, I just want to mention very quickly, La Senyera has changed their name on Twitter. We are now officially Barça Watch. You can follow us if you haven't already at Barça Watch. We're still the same people from La Senyera. We're still going to post the same content, which is regular updates, news, personal topics, analysis, and such. And these podcasts will still continue as well. It's just that right now we have changed our name on Twitter. On Facebook and Instagram, I believe we are still La Señera. We haven't changed very much. But for the time being, we're still the same. Thank you for listening us today. Thank you, Matthew, for joining me.
Oh, thank you, man. And I'd like to add something. Whoever follows La Senyera and knows me at McDocmat, I was suspended. I will be back once Valverde is sacked. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us today, Matthew. And Adibo, also thank you for joining me and Matthew in today's podcast. It was nice having you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I won't have as much intro which Matthew just had, but yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, if you liked the video, hit that like button. If you enjoyed it, subscribe. If you have any comments or suggestions for future videos, comment down below. And we'll see you in the next podcast. Have a good day.